Bob, I have a quick question for you, and I think this is a little untraditional. I've heard you speak so many times, and it never gets old. I love it. So thanks again for all of that. It's huge value, and you're a million percent right. And my question to you is more like, did you like you were so ahead of your time in a sense, like when this approach, I grew up in business my entire life. This is all I saw, and I shifted my philosophy more because I just didn't like to see the way business was conducted around me, and that's how I personally developed my own philosophy about being more of a giver, that value and all that stuff. And I remember being told by my mentors, my coaches, that I was ahead of the time. And growing up in the 90s and growing up in the 2000s, this is what that looked like. What was the resistance that you faced? How did you overcome that resistance? Did you face any form of resistance?
You know, it's a great question because people assume that I did. I really didn't face resistance, and
Hmm.
I'll tell you why. Okay, because different people do things their own ways. It's a big world. Okay,
Yeah.
uh, there's lots of different people who have their own ways of doing things. Um, and what I had noticed when I first got into business, because I still I saw all the same TV shows as everyone else and the same movies where there were always the horrible money grubbing
Sure.
person who just wanted to hurt people and take their money, and they were always right. And
Mhm.
so is that the way it's supposed to be done? And I saw people who were kind of people like that who seemed to do fairly well financially, although their personal lives and relationships always seem to be a huge mess. But even just speaking financially,
Sure.
the ones who I saw who were sustainably successful, okay, who did very well financially, seemed to be very happy, had wonderful relationships, had great friends, who felt good about themselves. These are the people who did business this way. Okay.
Mm.
So when John and I wrote this book, we weren't really we weren't really speaking necessarily to the people who would never buy into something like this. Okay.
Mm.
uh, we were more speaking just from our hearts and what we knew, what we had experienced. John was a very successful entrepreneur in his own right, aside from being in writing. And so and here's what happened. The our early adapters of the book were not the person who needed this to know this.
Mm.
It was the people who were already doing this, right?
Love it.
Emails we were receiving from people were, like, this is what I've been trying to tell people. This is how I built my fortune, or this is how I worked my way up to this, or this is how but
Right.
nobody believes me, right?
Mm.
And your book finally put into words what I've been trying to tell people.
Right.
So these people started buying massive amounts of books and
Wow.
giving them out to others. They were using
Mm.
John's and my book as third party credibility.
Right.
And, about 6 months later, we get that second wave of emails of people who said, oh, so and so gave this book, or my mentor gave this book, or my sales manager, or the CEO had everybody in the cut, right? And yes, my business is not. And, they saw by doing this, their business actually helped and they felt better about it. Now, have
Wow.
people who maybe did not believe in this concept, did people come around to it? I think a lot did. We've heard from people who did, but I also have no doubt there's a lot of people who just never would. It's
Right.
not what they know. They know the world is a totally different, you know what I'm saying? And
Sure.
so it's now I think there has been in business generally, and this is on the leadership edge. You have people like Bob Chapman, who wrote Everybody Matters, who was the
Hmm.
chairman and CEO of Barry Waymiller, a huge manufacturing company who has with tens of thousands of employees, and they have a wonderful, loving, caring culture in their company. I think you've got a lot more people like him coming along. Now, that said, we still see the reports that 75% of today's workplace feels disengaged from their work. And
Right.
yeah, I believe that too, right? Because things don't
Mm.
happen all at once or exactly as we'd like it to. But I think consciousness continues to grow in all different areas. And, eventually, you hope that, that before the billion years from now that the sun explodes, then that